The cold metal corridors of Haven 7 hummed with the quiet desperation of 3,000 souls. Captain Lee Hyun walked slowly through the main deck, his boots echoing against the steel floor. Each step reminded him that this small orbital station was all that remained of free humanity. Outside the thick windows, Earth spun below them like a dying jewel. The blue marble that once held 8 billion humans now served as a prison planet for an alien empire. Hyun pressed his hand against the cold glass and stared at the continent below. Somewhere down there, his sister Mina worked in the alien factories. Somewhere down there, humanity had forgotten how to be human. The Vorthak had been clever. They did not destroy Earth or kill its people. Instead, they broke something far more precious. They broke the human spirit itself. Commander Park Soo approached from behind. Her uniform was clean but worn thin from 3 years of constant use. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of too many sleepless nights planning defenses that everyone knew would eventually fail. "The morning reports, Captain," Sue said, handing him a data pad. Her voice carried the weight of bad news. Hyun read quickly. Food supplies would last another 6 months if they rationed carefully. The water recyclers were failing again. 3. More people had volunteered for the suicide missions to Earth, bringing the total to 47 volunteers and 0 successful returns. "Any word from the surface teams?" Hyun asked without looking up from the reports. "Nothing for 2 weeks. We have to assume they were captured or converted." The word "converted" hung in the air like poison. It meant the neural suppressors had found them. It meant more free humans had become empty shells, working mindlessly for their alien masters. Dr. Kim Yuna hurried past them toward the medical bay. Her lab coat was stained with coffee and her hair was a mess. She had been working for 72 hours straight, trying to understand the alien technology that had stolen humanity from itself. "Doctor," Hyun called out. "Any progress?" Yuna stopped and turned. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but still bright with determination. "I think I understand how the neural suppressors work. They target the brain areas responsible for free will and creative thinking. But, Captain, there might be something they missed." "What do you mean?" "Emotions. Strong emotions seem to create interference with the suppressor signals. I analyzed the brain scans from our escaped survivors, those who broke free during moments of extreme fear, anger, or love showed different neural patterns." Sue crossed her arms. "So people can break free if they get emotional enough?" "Theoretically, yes. But the suppressors adapt quickly. Once someone tries to resist, the aliens just increase the signal strength." Hyun nodded slowly. Hope was dangerous in their situation, but he could not help feeling a small spark. "Keep working on it, Doctor. Any breakthrough could change everything." As Yuna disappeared into her lab, Hyun continued his daily walk through Haven 7. In the recreation area, children played quietly with handmade toys. These kids had never seen Earth except through telescope images. They had never felt real sunlight or breathed natural air. Yet they laughed and played as children always did. Young Bae-na sat in the corner reading an old book about Korean history. At 19, she was the youngest member of their communications team. She looked up as Hyun passed. "Captain, do you think we will ever go home?" she asked, with the directness that only the young possessed. Hyun sat down beside her. "What do you think home means, Na?" "I used to think it meant Earth. But maybe home is wherever people care about each other. Maybe home is wherever humans can be truly human." Her words hit harder than any military report. These young people understood something that the adults sometimes forgot. They were not just fighting for a planet. They were fighting for the right to be themselves. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Choi Dae worked on the station's aging power systems. Day was 68 years old and had been maintaining space stations since before the invasion. His hands were steady despite his age, and his mind was sharp. How are we looking, Day? Hyun asked. The reactors are holding, but barely. These systems were designed for a crew of 500, not 3,000 refugees. We are pushing everything beyond safe limits. How long do we have? 6 months if we are lucky. Maybe 8 if we shut down non-essential systems. Hyun knew what non-essential systems meant. Heating for some sections, full life support for the elderly and sick, entertainment systems that kept people sane. Every decision meant choosing who would suffer so others could live a little longer. In the command center, Lieutenant Kang Min monitored the long-range sensors. Min had been a commercial pilot before the invasion. Now he tracked Vorthak ship movements and planned impossible escape routes that everyone knew would never work. Any activity? Hyun asked. 3 patrol ships passed through Sector 7 this morning. Standard sweep pattern. They are not actively hunting us, but they know we are out here somewhere. The Vorthak were patient. They did not need to waste resources hunting down Haven 7. Time was on their side. Eventually, the humans would run out of supplies, or their systems would fail, or they would make a desperate mistake that revealed their location. As night cycle began, Hyun stood in his small quarters looking at a photograph of his family. His parents had died in the initial invasion. His sister Mina had been captured during the evacuation of Busan. His brother had volunteered for a suicide mission to Seoul and never returned. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Hyun rushed to the communications center where Min was already working to decode the signal. "It is coming from Earth," Min said with excitement. "Someone down there has a transmitter." The message was short and filled with static, but the voice was unmistakably human and unmistakably familiar. "This is Mina Lee calling any free humans. I am in Busan Industrial Complex 7. The suppressors are not perfect. Some of us still remember. Some of us are still fighting. Please, if anyone can hear this, do not give up on us. We have not given up on ourselves." The transmission ended in static. Hyun stared at the communication console as tears ran down his face. His sister was alive. More importantly, she was still human. Around him, the crew of Haven 7 stood in silence. They had all heard the message. They had all understood what it meant. Somewhere below, humanity was still fighting. Somewhere below, the human spirit had not been completely broken. For the first time in months, Captain Lee Hyun smiled. The war was not over. It was just beginning. 3 months after Mina's message, the worst possible news arrived at Haven 7. Lieutenant Kang Min burst into the command center where Captain Lee Hyun was reviewing supply reports with Commander Park Soo. "Captain, we have incoming ships. Vorthak. Fleet. Massive formation heading straight for us." Hyun felt his blood turn cold. The long-range sensors showed the truth that everyone had feared. 12 Vorthak warships approached their position with the slow confidence of predators who had cornered their prey. "How long until they reach us?" Hyun asked. 6 hours at current speed," Min replied, his voice tight with fear. Soo immediately began barking orders to the crew. "All hands to battle stations. Seal the blast doors. Power up defensive systems." But everyone knew their few weapons could not stop even 1 Vorthak warship, let alone 12. In her laboratory, Dr. Kim Yuna worked frantically over her research data. The past 3 months had brought breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding the neural suppressors. She had discovered that the alien technology worked by blocking specific brain chemicals that controlled free will and creative thinking. More importantly, she had found the frequency pattern that the suppressors used. It was like a radio signal that told human brains to stop thinking for themselves. But Yuna had also discovered something the Vorthak did not know. Human brains could generate their own counter-frequency under extreme emotional stress. "Doctor," Hyun called as he entered the lab. "We need to evacuate. The Vorthak fleet will be here in 6 hours." Yuna looked up from her work with wild eyes. "Captain, I think I can do it. I think I can break the neural suppressors, not just for one person, but for everyone on Earth." What are you talking about? The counter frequency. I can generate it artificially and broadcast it through the global communication network. But someone would need to reach Earth's main transmission array and upload my program. Sue entered the lab behind Hyun. Even if that were possible, it would be a suicide mission. Earth's surface is crawling with Vorthak security forces. It gets worse, Yuna continued. The frequency generator would need enormous power, more power than any portable device could provide. Someone would have to use the planetary communication system itself. Hyun stared at the research data covering Yuna's workstation. Charts and graphs showed brain patterns, signal frequencies, and power calculations. It looked impossible. It looked insane. It looked like the only hope humanity had left. How long would the broadcast need to run? He asked. At least 30 minutes for global coverage, maybe longer depending on atmospheric interference. 30 minutes, Sue said grimly. Anyone on that transmission array would be dead long before the broadcast finished. Word of the approaching fleet spread quickly through Haven 7. In the recreation area, children clung to their parents. In the workshops, engineers worked desperately to repair weapons that had not been used in months. In the corridors, people hugged each other and said goodbye. Chief Engineer Choi Dae approached Hyun with a different kind of desperation in his eyes. Captain, we could scatter. Load people into escape pods and head for the outer colonies. Some of us might make it. And abandon Earth forever, Hyun asked. Earth is already lost. We could preserve what remains of free humanity among the stars. The debate that followed tore at the heart of their small community. Half the crew agreed with Dae. Running away meant some humans would survive even if Earth remained enslaved. The other half sided with Sue, who argued that they should fight to the end rather than live as refugees forever. Young Bae Na listened to the arguments from her position at the communications console. At 19, she was the youngest person, with a voice in their war council. When the senior officers finished speaking, she stood up slowly. I have been thinking about what home means, she said in a quiet voice that somehow carried through the entire room. 3 months ago, I told Captain Hyun that home might be wherever humans can be truly human. She paused and looked around at the faces watching her. But I was wrong. Home is not about where we are. Home is about who we choose to be. If we run away and leave 8 billion humans enslaved, are we still human? Or are we just another alien, species that puts survival above everything else? Her words hit the room like a physical blow. These adults had been thinking about tactics and logistics and survival rates. A teenager had reminded them about something more important. She had reminded them about their souls. The girl is right, said Lieutenant Song Jun from the demolitions. My wife and daughters are down there. I would rather die trying to free them than live knowing I abandoned them. One by one, others began to speak. Dr. Lim Hai talked about her parents in Daegu. Engineer Park talked about his brother in the Seoul factories. Communications specialist Lee talked about friends scattered across the planet. The vote was not even close. 47 people volunteered for the suicide mission to Earth. The rest would stay with Haven 7 and fight the Vorthak fleet as long as possible to buy time for the ground team. As preparations began, Overlord Kethvar sent a transmission from his flagship. The alien appeared on their main screen as a towering insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered like black diamonds. Humans of the orbital station, the alien's translator rendered his clicking speech into flat mechanical words. You have impressed us with your persistence, but this ends now. Surrender, and you will be processed quickly. Resist, and we will make your death slow and educational. Hyun stepped forward to reply. This is Captain Lee Hyun of the Human Defense Force. We reject your offer. Foolish mammals. You cannot win. Your weapons are inferior. Your numbers are insignificant. Your species exists now only to serve our empire. You are wrong about one thing, Hyun said calmly. You think we are fighting to win, but we are fighting because it is right. That is something your species will never understand. Kethvar's compound eyes seemed to focus more intently on the screen. We shall see how righteous you feel when your station burns around you. The transmission ended. Haven 7's crew had 4 hours to prepare for the impossible. 4 hours to turn a desperate plan into humanity's last hope. In the docking bay, Sue loaded weapons and supplies into a captured Vorthak transport ship. The infiltration team would consist of herself, Min, Jun, and Hai. 4 people against an entire planet of alien security forces. Are you sure this will work? Sue asked Yuna as the doctor installed her frequency generator into a portable computer. I am sure the science is correct, Yuna replied. Whether it will be enough to wake up 8 billion people, I honestly do not know. Hyun watched the preparations with a heavy heart. In a few hours, he would send his best people on a mission that would almost certainly kill them. Then he would lead Haven 7 into a battle against impossible odds. But for the first time in 3 years, he felt truly alive. For the first time. Since the invasion, humanity was choosing to fight back. The breaking point had finally arrived. The captured Vorthak transport ship slipped away from Haven 7 like a shadow in space. Commander Park Soo sat in the pilot seat, her hands steady on controls that felt alien and wrong. Beside her, Lieutenant Kang Min studied star charts and atmospheric entry calculations. Behind them, Lieutenant Song Jun checked his explosives one more time while Dr. Lim Hai practiced her Vorthak speech patterns. They had 2 hours before the alien fleet reached Haven 7. 2 hours to infiltrate Earth's atmosphere, land near Seoul, fight through enemy defenses, and reach the planetary communication array. It should have been impossible. But humans had always specialized in doing impossible things. Entry vector locked in, Min announced. We will come in over the Pacific and approach Seoul from the south. The Vorthak will expect any attack to come from the north where the old military bases were. Sue nodded and began the atmospheric entry sequence. Through the ship's windows, Earth grew larger and more heartbreaking. What should have been a beautiful blue marble was now scarred with alien industrial complexes. Gray smog covered much of Asia where the Vorthak had built their massive factories. Behind them in space, Captain Lee Hyun prepared Haven 7 for its final battle. The small station had never been designed for combat, but Chief Engineer Choi Dae had worked miracles over the past few hours. Mining lasers had been converted to weapons. Cargo containers filled with metal debris would serve as crude missiles. The station's communication array would broadcast false signals to confuse enemy targeting systems. Vorthak fleet entering weapons. Range, reported Bae-na from the communications console. Her young voice stayed steady despite the fear that everyone felt. All stations ready, Captain, announced Dae over the intercom. Hyun looked around the command center at his remaining crew. These 3,000 people were about to face 12 alien warships with weapons that could crack planets. But they were not afraid. They were determined. Open a channel to all sections, Hyun ordered. Na nodded. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Lee Hyun speaking to all hands. In a few minutes, we will engage the enemy. We do not fight because we think we can win. We fight because our friends need time to reach Earth. We fight because 8 billion humans are counting on us. We fight because that is what humans do. He paused and looked out at the approaching alien fleet. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you try to break the human spirit. Today we prove that some things are worth dying for. The first Vorthak missiles struck Haven 7's shields as Hyun finished speaking. The station shook but held together. Dae had reinforced the critical systems and rerouted power from everything non-essential. They would not last long, but they would last long enough. Meanwhile, Sue's transport ship entered Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. The alien ship's stealth systems were better than anything humanity had ever built, but they were still flying into the heart of enemy territory. Vorthak patrol ships ahead, Min warned. 2 squadrons guarding the Seoul approach. This is where we find out if Hai's translation work was correct, Sue muttered. Dr. Lim Hai activated the communication system and began speaking in the clicking, buzzing language of the Vorthak. She told the patrol ships that their transport was carrying new slave workers to the industrial complex. She used the proper code words and identification signals that she had learned from captured alien databases. The patrol ships moved aside. Hai's months of language study had worked perfectly. The enemy never suspected that humans could learn their complex speech patterns. As they flew over the Korean peninsula, the infiltration team saw the true horror of the occupation. Cities that once held millions of people were now empty, except for alien structures. Humans worked in vast factory complexes, their movements slow and mechanical. They looked like robots wearing human faces. There, Min pointed toward a massive tower that rose above Seoul's ruins. The planetary communication array, the Vorthak built it on top of the old broadcast center. Sue began the landing approach. The transport settled down in a maintenance area behind the tower where alien vehicles were parked. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the real mission began. Jun planted explosive charges on their ship to prevent anyone from examining it too closely. Hai gathered alien uniforms from a supply depot so they could move through the complex without drawing attention. Min studied the tower's layout using his technical knowledge to find the best route to the transmission equipment. The tower was crawling with Vorthak security forces. Six-legged creatures that looked like giant spiders patrolled the corridors. Flying drones scanned every room with sensors that could detect human heartbeats. Guard posts blocked every stairwell and elevator. But the humans had advantages that the aliens did not expect. They were smaller and could hide in spaces the large Vorthak could not enter. They were quieter and could move without the clicking sounds that alien feet made on metal floors. Most importantly, they were desperate, and desperate people could do amazing things. The team fought their way up the tower floor by floor. Jun's explosives cleared, blocked passages, while Hai used her alien language skills to confuse security systems. Min's technical expertise helped them bypass electronic locks and surveillance equipment. But the tower was enormous, and every level brought new dangers. On the 15th floor, they encountered a Vorthak patrol that could not be avoided or fooled. Jun attacked them with his last grenades, buying time for the others to escape. His sacrifice saved the mission, but it cost them their demolitions expert. On the 20th floor, a security drone detected Hai despite her alien disguise. She stayed behind to fight off the guards, while Min and Sue continued climbing. Her alien language skills would no longer help the mission, but her courage helped save it. By the time Min and Sue reached the transmission level, they were alone and almost out of ammunition. The planetary communication array stretched out before them like a metal forest. Alien technicians worked at control stations, monitoring broadcasts to every corner of Earth. "There," Min whispered, pointing to a central control console. "If we can upload Yuna's program to that system, it will reach every suppressed human on the planet." Sue checked her watch. They had been fighting for 3 hours. Haven 7 should have been destroyed by now, but she could still see explosions in the sky above them. Somehow Captain Hyun was still holding off the Vorthak fleet. "Jun and Hai did not die for nothing," Sue said grimly. "We finished this." Above them in space, Haven 7 was burning. Half the station's hull had been torn away by alien weapons. The life support systems were failing. Dozens of good people had died at their posts. But Captain Lee Hyun still stood on his command bridge, and Haven 7 still fought. The station's improvised weapons had actually damaged 2 Vorthak ships. Their desperate tactics had confused the enemy and delayed the inevitable. "How much longer?" Hyun asked. "The infiltration team needs 20 more minutes," Na reported from her damaged console. Hyun looked around at his crew. These people had given everything for humanity. Now he would ask them to give even more. "All power to forward shields," Cap ordered. "Ram course for the enemy flagship." Haven 7 turned toward Overlord Kethvar's massive warship like an arrow aimed at the heart of evil. The desperate gambit was almost complete. Commander Park Soo and Lieutenant Kang Min crept through the shadows of the transmission chamber. Alien technicians worked at their stations, unaware that two humans had penetrated the heart of their planetary control system. The central console glowed with strange symbols that controlled communications across all of Earth. Min pulled out Dr. Kim Yuna's frequency generator, a device no bigger than a book, but containing humanity's last hope. His hands shook as he connected it to the alien computer system. One mistake would trigger every alarm in the building. Above them in space, Haven 7 raced toward the Vorthak flagship like a blazing comet. Captain Lee Hyun gripped his command chair as alien weapons tore through his station's hull. Sections of the ship broke away and tumbled into Earth's atmosphere, but the central core held together. 30 seconds to impact, announced Bae Na, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. Overlord Kethvar watched the approaching human station with amazement rather than fear. His massive warship could destroy the orbital facility with ease, but he was curious about this final act of defiance. What did these inferior creatures hope to accomplish? "Sir, should we destroy them before impact?" asked his weapons officer. "No," Kethvar replied with alien amusement. "Let them come. I want to see what passes for courage among mammals." On Earth's surface, Min finished connecting Yuna's device to the transmission system. The frequency generator hummed to life, its display showing power levels building toward the critical threshold needed for global broadcast. "How long until we can transmit?" Sue whispered. 2 more minutes for the system to charge," Min replied. "Then 30 minutes for full planetary coverage." Sue checked her weapon. They had killed 6 alien technicians to reach this point, but dozens more worked throughout the building. Soon the enemy would discover what was happening. Soon they would come in overwhelming numbers. "Whatever happens, we do not let them stop the broadcast," she said. In the Busan Industrial Complex, Mina Lee worked at her assembly station like all the other enslaved humans. Her hands moved automatically, building alien devices without understanding their purpose. But deep inside her mind, something still burned with defiance. The neural suppressor implanted in her skull told her to work without thinking. It told her to obey without question. It told her that resistance was impossible. But Mina had never forgotten her brother's face or the sound of his voice calling her name. Across the planet, 8 billion humans went through the motions of their enslaved existence. They worked in alien factories, built alien cities, and served alien masters. The neural suppressors had stolen their free will, their creativity, and their hope, but they had not stolen their capacity to love. In the Soul Transmission Tower, Yuna's frequency generator reached full power. Min activated the global broadcast just as Vorthak's security forces broke down the chamber doors. The device began transmitting its counter-frequency to every communication relay on Earth. "The signal is active!" Min shouted over the sound of alien weapons fire. Sue opened fire on the attacking guards, her rifle blazing in the confined space. "Keep that transmission running no matter what happens." The first pulse of Yuna's frequency reached Mina's brain like a whisper of remembered freedom. For a split second, the neural suppressor faltered. For a split second, she remembered her own name. The feeling passed quickly as the suppressor adapted to the new signal. But in that moment of clarity, Mina felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt angry. Across Earth, similar moments of awakening flickered in millions of human minds. Parents remembered their children's faces. Lovers remembered their partners' voices. Soldiers remembered their duty to protect the innocent. The Vorthak had been clever to target free will and creativity, but they had underestimated human emotion. Love, anger, grief, and hope proved stronger than any alien technology. Haven 7 struck Overlord Kethvar's flagship like a hammer blow from the gods themselves. The small human station crumpled against the massive alien warship, but its momentum was unstoppable. Captain Hune's desperate ram attack punched through the enemy's shields and tore an enormous hole in their hull. Kethavar was thrown across his command bridge as his ship shuddered under the impact. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Damage reports flooded in from every section. "How is this possible?" the alien commander demanded. Their ship was insignificant. His tactical officer's compound eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect. "Sir," they concentrated all remaining power into their forward shields and rammed us at maximum velocity. It was tactically insane, but strategically effective. Kethavar stared at the burning wreckage of Haven 7 as it drifted away from his damaged flagship. These humans had just sacrificed their last stronghold to wound a single enemy ship. What kind of species chose certain death over uncertain surrender? On Earth, Yuna's frequency broadcast continued despite the battle raging around the transmission equipment. Min lay wounded beside the control console, but his hands still protected the frequency generator. Sue fought off wave after wave of alien guards, her ammunition running dangerously low. The counter frequency had been broadcasting for 15 minutes. Across the planet, the effects were becoming stronger and more widespread. Humans began to remember not just their names and faces, but their dreams and ambitions. In the Busan complex, Mina suddenly stopped working. The alien overseer clicked angrily at her, but she did not resume her tasks. Instead, she looked around at the hundreds of other humans working mindlessly at their stations. "My name is Mina Lee," she said, in a voice that carried across the factory floor. "I have a brother named Hyun who taught me that some things are worth fighting for." Other workers began to slow their movements. The neural suppressors fought to maintain control, but Yuna's frequency was growing stronger with each passing minute. "I remember Seoul before the invasion," called out an old man from across the factory. "I remember when humans built things for themselves instead of for alien masters." One by one, voices began to rise throughout the complex. Humans remembered their past and rejected their enslaved present. The awakening was spreading faster than the Vorthak had ever imagined possible. In the Seoul transmission tower, Min's frequency generator completed its 25-minute mark. 5 more minutes would ensure complete global coverage, but the alien security forces were overwhelming Sue's position. "The signal has reached critical mass," Min gasped through his injuries. "Even if they stop us now, the awakening will spread on its own." Sue smiled grimly as she fired her last magazine at the advancing enemies. Around the world, humanity was remembering what it meant to be human. The breaking point had finally arrived, and the world would never be the same. The awakening spread across Earth like wildfire in a dry forest. In every city, every factory, every enslaved community, humans began to remember who they truly were. The neural suppressors that had controlled 8 billion people for 3 years suddenly faced something they had never encountered before: the combined emotional power of an entire species refusing to submit. Mina Lee stood on a workbench in the Busan factory complex, her voice carrying over the growing chaos. Around her, hundreds of workers had stopped their mindless labor and were looking up with eyes that finally showed awareness. "They told us we were weak," she shouted. "They told us we were defeated. But they were wrong. We are human, and humans do not stay down." An alien overseer approached her with a neural control device, intending to increase the suppressor signal. But before the creature could reach her, a former security guard named Kim stepped forward and knocked the alien to the ground with a metal tool. "No more," Kim said simply. "No more slavery. No more suppression, no more fear." Similar scenes erupted across the planet. In the London industrial zones, humans overwhelmed their alien guards through sheer numbers. In the Tokyo manufacturing centers, workers used their intimate knowledge of the facilities to trap and disable Vorthak security forces. In the New York processing plants, enslaved people turned assembly tools into weapons. The Vorthak had made a critical error in their occupation strategy. They had left the neural suppressors as the primary means of control, relying on technology instead of physical force. When the suppressors failed, they found themselves vastly outnumbered on every world they had conquered. In space above Earth, Overlord Kethvar watched his invasion fleet struggle with a problem they had never faced before. His ships were designed to fight other spacecraft, not to suppress planetary rebellions. His troops were trained for conquest, not occupation. "Sir, we are receiving reports from all major population centers," his communications officer announced. "The humans are uprising everywhere. Our ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation." Kethvar's compound eyes studied the tactical displays. Red warning symbols covered every continent. His carefully organized slave world was collapsing into chaos faster than his forces could respond. "How many humans are we dealing with?" he asked. "Approximately 8 billion, sir. Even for the Vorthak Empire, those numbers were overwhelming." Kethvar had conquered dozens of worlds, but never had he faced an entire species rising in coordinated rebellion. In the Sol Transmission Tower, Commander Park Soo fell beside Lieutenant Kang Min as alien weapons fire finally overwhelmed their position. Min reached out with his last strength to protect Yuna's frequency generator, which had been broadcasting for 28 minutes. "Did we do it?" Soo whispered. "Look outside," Min replied weakly. Through the tower's windows, they could see humans pouring into the streets of Seoul. Former slaves attacked alien vehicles with makeshift weapons. Groups of awakened people stormed Vorthak administrative buildings. The city that had been silent for 3 years now echoed with the sounds of human voices demanding freedom. Min smiled as his strength faded. "Yes, we did it." The frequency generator continued broadcasting for its final 2 minutes, ensuring that even the most remote human settlements received the awakening signal. When it finally shut down, its work was complete. Humanity was free, but freedom came with a terrible price. The uprising was not without casualties. Millions of humans died in the initial rebellion as they fought against better-armed alien forces. Cities that had survived the original invasion now burned as humans, and Vorthak battled for control. In Busan, Mina led a group of former factory workers in an assault on the alien command center. They had no military training and only improvised weapons, but they had something more powerful than equipment. They had the fury of people who had been enslaved for 3 years. The Vorthak commander of the Busan complex tried to negotiate a surrender, but Mina rejected his offer. "You had your chance to treat us with dignity," she told him. "Now you face the consequences of treating us like animals." The battle for Busan lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the alien complex was in ruins, and the Vorthak forces were either dead or fled. Mina stood in the wreckage of her former prison, looking up at the sky where explosions marked the retreat of alien ships. Across the planet, similar battles raged as awakened humans fought to reclaim their world. The cost was enormous, but the outcome was inevitable. 8 billion angry humans could not be stopped by any force in the galaxy. Dr. Kim Yuna, who had remained aboard the wreckage of Haven 7, was rescued by human salvage teams 3 days after the awakening. She had survived in an emergency shelter as the destroyed station slowly fell toward Earth. Her first words to her rescuers were questions about the success of her frequency broadcast. "It worked," the salvage team leader told her. "Earth is free. Humanity is free." Yuna wept with relief and exhaustion. The neural suppressor research that had consumed her life for 3 years had finally served its purpose. But the cost of that success was written in the destroyed cities and countless graves of those who had died fighting for freedom. In the ruins of Seoul, engineers worked to restore the planetary communication system that Min and Soo had used to broadcast the awakening frequency. They found the bodies of the 2 heroes still protecting the transmission equipment. Min's hand was still on the frequency generator's power switch. The engineers built a memorial around the transmission chamber, preserving it exactly as it had been during those crucial 30 minutes. A plaque honored Commander Park Soo and Lieutenant Kang Min as the two people who had awakened a world. Similar memorials arose across Earth. In every city that had seen fighting, humans erected monuments to those who had died for freedom. The names of Jun and Hai were carved in stone alongside thousands of others who had made the ultimate sacrifice. Captain Lee Hyun's body was never found. The wreckage of Haven 7 had burned completely during its collision with the Vorthak flagship. But survivors from the station told stories of his final moments, how he had smiled as he ordered the ramming attack that crippled the enemy fleet. The surviving crew members of Haven 7 became heroes of the liberation. Young Bae Na, who had operated communications during the final battle, was awarded the highest honors that the reformed Earth government could bestow. Chief Engineer Choi Dae received recognition for keeping the station operational long enough to complete the mission. But the heroes knew that victory had come at a price that could never be repaid. Earth was scarred by 3 years of alien occupation and the devastating rebellion that ended it. Entire ecosystems had been destroyed by alien industry. Millions of humans had died either as slaves or as freedom fighters. Mina Lee stood in the ruins of Busan 6 months after the awakening, watching construction crews rebuild her city. The work was slow and difficult, but it was human work done by free human hands. She thought about her brother Hyun, who had died to give her this chance at freedom. She thought about the crew of Haven 7, who had sacrificed everything so that humanity could remember what it meant to be human. The Vorthak Empire still existed somewhere among the stars, but they would never again underestimate the species they had tried to enslave. Word of humanity's rebellion had spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other conquered peoples to fight for their own freedom. Earth was wounded, but not broken. Humanity was scarred, but not defeated. They had paid the price for freedom in blood and sacrifice, but they had proven something important to themselves and to the universe. Some spirits could not be broken, some fires could not be extinguished, and some prices were worth paying no matter how high the cost. 5 years after the Great Awakening, Earth looked very different from the world that had fallen to Vorthak invasion. Cities had been rebuilt with new designs that honored both human creativity and the lessons learned from occupation. Memorial. Parks marked the sites where heroes had fallen, and schools taught children about the price of freedom. Admiral Mina Lee stood before the memorial wall in New Seoul, reading the names carved into black stone. Her brother Hyun's name was there, along with every member of Haven 7's crew. Commander Park Soo and Lieutenant Kang Min had their own special section, with their story told in simple words that children could understand. They chose to break, rather than bend, read the inscription below their names. In breaking, they remembered what made them human. Behind Mina, a group of young cadets waited respectfully. These 18-year-olds had been children during the occupation, but they remembered the gray days when humans worked without hope. Now they trained to defend Earth as part of the reformed Human Defense Force. "Admiral," said Cadet Han, the youngest, of the group. "Why did the Vorthak think they could control humans with just neural suppressors?" Mina turned from the wall to face the cadets. "Because they did not understand what makes humans different from other species. They thought our strength came from our technology or our weapons. They never realized that our true power comes from our refusal to accept defeat." "But the neural suppressors did work for 3 years," pointed out Cadet Park. "How did people resist them?" "They worked on our minds," Mina explained. "But they could not touch our hearts. Deep down, humans never stopped loving each other. Parents never stopped caring about their children. Brothers and sisters never forgot their families. That love became the crack that broke their control." Dr. Kim Yuna approached the group from the nearby research center. At 45, she was considered one of Earth's greatest heroes, but she still carried herself with the quiet modesty of a scientist. Her work on neural suppression had led to breakthroughs in treating depression and trauma, helping heal the psychological wounds left by the occupation. Dr. Yuna, Hans said excitedly. We were just learning about the frequency broadcast. How did you know it would work? Yuna smiled at the young cadet's enthusiasm. I did not know it would work. I only knew that we had to try. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from desperation rather than careful planning. But the science was sound, added Park. The science was educated guessing, Yuna corrected gently. We understood how the neural suppressors worked, but we had never tested the counter frequency on such a large scale. If we had been wrong, 8 billion people would have remained enslaved forever. The group walked through the memorial park toward the rebuilt communication tower. The original structure had been preserved as a monument, with the transmission chamber kept exactly as Sue and Min had left it. School children from across Earth came to see the place where humanity's awakening had begun. The important thing, to remember, Mina continued as they walked, is that heroes are not born special. Commander Sue was a regular soldier. Lieutenant Min was a commercial pilot. My brother was just a ship captain who refused to give up. They became heroes by choosing to do what was right instead of what was safe. At the tower's base, they met with representatives from the Catharian Republic, a species that had recently overthrown their own Vorthak occupation. The aliens looked like tall, graceful birds with silver feathers and intelligent golden eyes. They had come to Earth to learn about human resistance techniques. Ambassador Veltar spoke through a translation device that rendered her musical language into human words. We studied your rebellion for 2 years before attempting our own uprising. Your tactics and strategies were crucial to our success. We shared everything we learned, Mina replied. No species should face the Vorthak alone. But it was not your tactics that inspired us most, Veltar continued. It was your willingness to sacrifice for each other. Vorthak suppression works by isolating individuals and breaking their connections to others. You proved that some bonds cannot be severed. The Catharians were the 7th species to successfully rebel against Vorthak occupation using lessons learned from humanity's uprising. Word of Earth's victory had spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring resistance movements on dozens of worlds. As the day ended, Mina stood alone in the memorial garden where her brother's favorite bench overlooked the rebuilt city. She came here every year on the anniversary of the awakening, talking to Hyun's memory about the progress humanity had made. The new orbital defense stations are almost complete, she told the empty air. We call them Haven-class stations in honor of your sacrifice. If the Vorthak ever return, they will find us ready. The truth was that the Vorthak Empire had avoided human space entirely since the rebellion. Reports from refugee species indicated that humanity had become something of a legend among the galaxy's enslaved peoples, the species that had broken rather than bent. The people who chose freedom over survival. Young Bei Na, now Captain Na and commander of the first Haven-class station, often spoke to new recruits about the lessons of the occupation. At 24, she was the youngest station commander in Human Defense Force history, but her experience during the final battle of Haven 7 had taught her wisdom beyond her years. The Vorthak made one critical error, she would tell the recruits. They assumed that control and power were the same thing. But true power comes from the willingness to sacrifice for others. It comes from choosing what is right over what is easy. The new defense stations orbiting Earth were marvels of human engineering, but they were also monuments to human values. Each station's central hall contained a memorial to the heroes of the liberation, reminding every crew member why they served. Dr. Lim Hai's translation work had become the foundation for a new field of xenolinguistics that helped humans communicate, with the growing number of alien refugees seeking shelter in human space. Lieutenant Songjun's sacrifice had inspired new tactical doctrines that emphasized courage over firepower. But perhaps the most important change was in how humans saw themselves. The occupation had stripped away many illusions about human weakness and strength. The awakening had revealed what truly mattered. not technology or weapons, but the connections between people and their willingness to protect each other. Children born after the liberation grew up hearing stories of the breaking point. They learned that their parents and grandparents had faced the ultimate test and had chosen freedom over safety. They understood that the scars on their rebuilt world were proof of humanity's refusal to accept defeat. As Mina prepared to leave the memorial garden, she noticed a new addition to the wall. Fresh names had been carved into the stone, honoring humans who had died helping other species overthrow their own occupations. The liberation of Earth had been just the beginning. "We broke that day above Earth," she whispered to her brothers. Memory. But in breaking, we became something stronger than we had ever been before. We became truly human. The memorial garden grew quiet as evening fell over New Seoul. In the distance, the lights of the rebuilt city twinkled like stars brought down to Earth. Children played in parks where alien factories had once stood. Families gathered for dinner, in homes built on the ruins of oppression. The Vorthok had tried to break humanity's spirit and had instead awakened something they could never understand. They had tried to make humans into slaves and had instead forged them into liberators. The galaxy would remember the day humanity finally broke. More importantly, it would remember what humanity chose to become in the aftermath of that breaking. They had chosen to heal rather than hate, to build rather than destroy, to protect rather than conquer. In the end, that choice made all the difference. The price of freedom had been paid in blood and sacrifice, but the value of that freedom would echo through the stars for generations to come. Humanity had broken, and in breaking, they had remembered what it truly meant to be human.